Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the GWOT FOB Podcast, brought to you by Combat Outpost Robinson and Digital Visuals in downtown Middletown for all your signage needs. Today is going to be episode 3, and we are continuing our series with the Fort Hood Massacre of 2009. And today our host is Dr. Clifford Hopewell. And Dr. Hopewell, welcome to the show. And I have it on good authority that you're the expert on this. So if you don't mind giving our listeners and our viewers a little bio on you and a little background on how you became to be in the medical field and then on into the military, what your rank was and those things, that'll get us started.
Well, I appreciate very much your asking me to participate. And I appreciate Colonel Platoni, whom I met during this tragedy. I just hope that we can provide some information for the viewers and the listeners that will be helpful. What we found is that, as is true with a lot of media coverage, really a lot, or if not most, of what people have heard is either distorted or not true. So I appreciate everyone's interest. To answer your question, my original interest, my father was a prisoner of war in World War II.
Oh, wow.
He was actually in Stalag Luft, which was the site of the Great Escape. Some people have seen the movie with Steve McQueen. Uh-huh. And he was the stenographer for the camp. Because of that, I felt like I always had a duty to, to do something to honor his service, and was interested in the military. I originally intended to go to West Point. I was nominated by our congressman, but I wanted to be a physician. Originally, I wanted to go into psychiatry. And back in those days, West Point really didn't have a pathway to do that. And it was the middle of the Vietnam War. So we have Texas A&M here in Texas, of course.
Yes.
We're originally from Dallas. I was actually admitted to the Virginia Military Institute, to the Citadel, to A&M, and to West Point. But Texas A&M had an outstanding pre-medical program. It's here in the state. My father said he would help pay for it if I went, since I wouldn't be supported by the government if I went to West Point.
Right.
So I went ahead and decided to go to Texas A&M. That's the roundabout way to answer your question. Of course, I was in the Corps of Cadets. I played in the band, so I was in the band and received my commission from Texas A&M. I went ahead and had a contract as a Army cadet.
Okay.
Received my bachelor's in psychology from Texas A&M. And at that point, Nixon pulled 100,000 troops out of Vietnam. My class was scheduled to go.
Okay.
But we didn't go because we pulled people out, and we were given some educational options. So I was admitted to North Texas State University, where I went and completed my master's and my PhD in psychology. For those who are familiar with the military, I don't know if they still call it this or not. Things change all the time. But
Right.
At the time, it was an educational delay. So when I finished that, then I went on active duty.
Okay.
My first duty station was Moncrief Army Hospital in Columbia, South Carolina at Fort Jackson. I had done a residency at the medical branch in Galveston in neurology and in brain injury. That's my specialty.
Oh, that's interesting.
Well, we'll get to that later because that's
Okay.
directly related to the Hassan.
Okay.
And because I was one of the very few specialists in the Army, at that time, probably only about 5 who had that kind of training, I went to Landstuhl, Germany, where I did my second tour, and I set up the brain injury clinic at the hospital in Landstuhl.
Oh, wow.
So we were stationed at Landstuhl in Germany for 3 years. At that point, I rotated back, and I was the chief of neuropsychology at Brooke Army Medical Center at Fort Sam Houston. Well, by that time, I'd finished my initial obligation. It was a reserve commission. And I never really intended to make a career out of the Army, but I wanted to serve my country. I wanted to honor my father, and I wanted the experience. So at that point, I was hired by Baylor Institute for Rehabilitation, which is here in Dallas. It had a different name at the time, but they hired me to set up a clinic at the hospital. It's part of the Baylor system.
Okay.
So at that point, I was in the individual ready reserve, and I went about my business as a civilian. I directed brain injury services here in Dallas, Fort Worth. The Gulf War broke out. They kept sending me letters. They were going to put me back on active duty, then they weren't. And finally sent me a letter and said, well, you finished your obligation, 20 years. And so I did not return for the Gulf War.
Okay.
However, when GWOT broke out, after the 9/11 attacks,
right,
I have classmates. Most of my class is all retired now, but at the time I had classmates still working at the Pentagon, and they talked to General Chiarelli, who was the Vice Chief of Staff of the Army, and they requested me to come back on active duty because of my brain injury background.
Okay.
So I agreed to do that. I was recommissioned as an active duty officer and reported to Fort Hood. I agreed to do it if I could go to Fort Hood because that's close to my home.
Right.
And the plans, which we did, the plan was for me to direct the psychiatric clinic at Fort Hood, which at the time was the largest psychiatric clinic in the world, anywhere. I didn't realize I was getting into that. But I went to Fort Hood. I was the officer in charge of it. We had other people deployed. And so then I deployed to Iraq. I was stationed mostly at Camp Liberty outside of Baghdad. I was the theater consultant for brain injury. I'm one of the very few neuropsychologists who has a prescribing license with a degree in pharmacology. So I managed medications. I was served with the 785th Combat Stress Unit in Iraq.
Mm-hmm.
And for that, when I came back, I was fortunate enough, I'm astounded, but I was awarded the Bronze Star Medal for that work. I'm the only psychologist in the history of the United States Army to ever receive the Bronze Star Medal for what I did.
Wow.
A few other people have gotten it for other reasons.
Right.
But I'm the only person who ever did what I did specifically. So I returned to Fort Hood, and I had actually set up the brain injury clinic at Fort Hood. Now, Fort Hood is also Carl Darnall Army Medical Center. That's the medical center. And I was, of course, assigned to MedCom. And so I was put back in charge of the brain injury clinic. They had just built some new buildings. And that gets to why you invited me on this show, because I was in charge of the brain injury center, which was adjacent to the Soldier Readiness Center. Okay. And that was to the post-deployment PDHRI Center. The only thing anybody ever hears about is the SRP, or the Soldier Readiness Center, which is where Hassan started shooting people.
Right.
And he was looking for me. Actually, he's looking for two people. He was looking for me and not Colonel, but Major Leslie Parrish, who was the OIC of that clinic. And he started out over there, but I wasn't there. I was in the other building. And there are five buildings in that complex. And I had three of them. I had the brain injury clinic, the rehab clinic, and then a separate building for computer work, and then the other two buildings. So that's the geographical or office footprint of what we had and what he initially attacked.
Okay. Now, it's my understanding that when the attack took place, that the building was full of soldiers doing all the processing, their paperwork, their shots, vaccinations, and all that stuff, getting ready for deployment. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. We had just returned from lunch, and so the SRP was filling up, and it was always busy because we had two units in particular, the 1066, and I can't remember the number of the other unit. I think that was Colonel Petoni's unit.
Yeah.
And the 2 days before that, I had been personally involved in training those units on brain injury. They'd gone through all their training and
Right.
their paperwork, and so this day they were at the clinic to get shots and finish up their paperwork, plus other people. I think they were in Hawaii there at the time. Uh, but frequently we had people from other reserve units that all went through. So it was full. People, I think, probably standing in the doorway. In
Okay.
my building, we had just started up to have our therapy sessions and evaluations for the afternoon. So we had people in our building, but not quite as many. And
Okay.
the PDHRA site was full also because all those people were going through and debriefing after coming back. Typically, what would happen is if they were identified with a concussion or brain injury at PDHRA, then they'd be referred to us for us to follow up. So we're all kind of together.
Okay. Can you kind of walk our viewers and listeners through kind of what it was like that day and how you came to be involved uh, with working on the wounded and the casualties?
Uh, well, it was of course it was all interesting. There's some interesting twists and turns to the tale, um, which most people don't know. But by coincidence, that day we had a mental health meeting at one of the other large buildings where all the psychiatrists, social workers, drug and alcohol people, myself, we had a luncheon. And it was
Okay.
an annual event where we could get together, discuss things, also kind of have some camaraderie. And Hassan was supposed to be there, but we hardly ever saw him because he didn't come to work. We didn't know, and I was in a different building, so I didn't have eyes on him all the time.
Right.
We found out later that he was off doing other stuff, so he wasn't there, and he was supposed. It was a mandatory meeting. The hospital commander came to me personally and asked me if I knew where he was because nobody had seen him, nobody knew where he was. Colonel Adams, who is since deceased, and he would not mind me saying this. Uh, he was about my age, but he'd had some cardiac issues, and we're convinced that that put more stress on his heart. And he deceased. He passed away about 6 months ago.
Oh, I'm
We've had
sorry to hear that.
we've had 10 suicides after the attack, and Colonel Adams passed away. So we're convinced that this has taken a deadly physical toll on everybody.
Right.
Anyway, Colonel Adams saw him at the hospital in the elevator and talked to him and said, "Are you coming to this meeting?" And the guy acted weird and evasive and disappeared. So Colonel Adams didn't know what was happening with him. We had our meeting. We finished. As I indicated before, we all returned to the clinics to resume work and go back to work. And that's when he showed up, and he went to the SRP building. Uh, he was angry with Major Parrish because she was trying to get him processed to deploy. And he was angry with me because I had talked to her about his problems and um, how to do that.
Right.
I think he thought we were in the same building together, but since I was in the building, we heard the shooting starting, and we knew something was wrong, so we locked our buildings down. We didn't
Right.
know what was happening, but
Right.
that's what he did. He went to that other building and started over there.
Okay. Now, uh, I think Dr. Potomian mentioned that you were Adele Hassan's direct supervisor.
Well, not the direct supervisor. That was one of the misconceptions.
Okay.
We both worked for the medical clinics,
Okay.
but again, he really worked for the other psychiatrist in the other building. And
Okay.
when they shot him and pulled out his ID card, the ID card had his name, and I don't remember if it designated him as a psychiatrist. Somebody recognized he was a psychiatrist. Well, everybody in the complex knew who I was because I
Right.
was. So they ran up to me, literally shoved the ID card right in my face, and said, "Does this guy work for you? Is he your guy? Is he your employee?" Because they thought he
Right.
was. And that's the first I knew who he was
Okay.
because we didn't know who was doing this.
Okay.
And also, when we locked the building down, we couldn't see. And obviously, we weren't going to stick our heads out the window and look at
Right.
somebody with a rifle and a gun.
Right.
Um, so that's the first time that I knew who it was, and I recognized the name, I recognized the picture. Told the SWAT team, "No, he doesn't work for me, but I know who he is," and I was the one who identified him.
Oh, okay. Uh, I was also informed that uh, the shooter had been under investigation by the FBI and the CIA for several months prior to this attack. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
um, and one of our survivors sent me some links just today. But the short version is that this guy was he never should have been put in medical school to begin with. He's totally incompetent. Any other person would have been thrown out of medical school. So he was sent to USIS, which is the Uniform um, Health Services. I can't remember the formal name. The Uniform Health Services Medical School at Walter Reed in Washington, D.C., where he was trained and went to his psychiatry residency. Everybody passed him through. Nobody disciplined him. Every report we got from that and all the investigations showed that he was completely incompetent, didn't show up to work, wouldn't see the patients. Things that
Wow.
if I did for a week, I'd be court-martialed or out of the
Well,
service.
yeah. Yeah.
Now, while he was at Walter Reed, all the residents were required to do a research project. His research project, which is available on the internet, you can find it. It's something about the state of Islam in the military or something. I can't remember the formal name of it.
Right.
It was a bunch of garbage about Islam and being in the military, and if you should do follow military orders and this sort of nonsense. It had nothing to do with research.
Wow.
It was something that maybe a third grader would do in an elementary school class and writing up something. And he presented this as a doctoral level research project. I've got a copy of it.
Wow.
Again, any normal medical school would have said this is garbage. You either have to redo it or you're out of here. Um, they did nothing. So they listened to this.
It almost sounds like they had orders to just pass him through regardless.
They did. We're convinced they did. We're,
They
con-
had to.
we're
Wow.
convinced absolutely that they either were told explicitly or they knew, oh, if we reprimand this guy, our careers will be jeopardized.
Right.
Now, about that time, he started communicating with Alawaki, who's a terrorist of Falls Church. And then I think Alawaki had moved to Saudi Arabia or somewhere in the Middle East at that time. I didn't keep up with what he was doing, but he was communicating with him. And the gist of that was, well, is it okay for me to follow military orders? And would it be Allah's will if I killed some Americans and all this sort of stuff?
Wow.
So he was assigned to the FBI San Diego office, and I've seen the memo. Fox News interviewed us. Catherine Herridge from Fox News had a copy of all this documentation, and it proved that the San Diego FBI office was assigned to investigate it. Now, I don't know about the CIA,
Okay.
um, and the CIA was probably, because they're supposed to operate overseas, the CIA was probably keeping track of what was going on with Alawaki, out of CONUS. But
That makes a little more sense. Yeah.
the FBI was tracking him here. And then what happened was Eric Holder personally sent orders to the San Diego FBI to cancel the surveillance. Now, Eric Holder would only do that with the approval of who?
The president.
The president.
Yeah.
So basically, the president and Eric Holder canceled all the surveillance. And the supposed result of that from the San Diego FBI was, oh, he's not really dangerous. He was just asking about religious information and religious opinions, and there's nothing to worry about. Now, this is a guy who anybody with any sense would know is completely irresponsible as a physician, completely unqualified to be a physician, should have been thrown out for malpractice, and was doing weird things with these PowerPoints, and anybody could have recognized the problems.
Okay.
And they did nothing. So they then sent him to Fort Hood. And we're convinced that was a way to say, oh, my God, thank God, we're rid of this guy.
Right.
Go bother somebody else.
And you might be 100% correct on that.
I am. Now, at this point was the middle of summer, either June or July of 2009. I had returned from my deployment, and part of my duties were to be on call, not every night, but rotate with the other doctors. Right. So about once a week, I was on call in the hospital on the psychiatric emergency floor with the people that were medevaced from Afghanistan and Iraq.
Okay.
Now, these were soldiers with PTSD, some with concussions. They couldn't stay in theater, and they were medevaced back for treatment at Don Hall.
Right.
My job was to interview them and make a decision if they could go to barracks and then come to the clinic in the morning, or if they needed to stay in the hospital, that sort of thing. So that particular night, I had about 6 patients that I had for which I was responsible. One of the other psychiatrists came up to me, and they weren't on duty, I was. So she came up and she says, oh, I'd like for you to meet our new psychiatrist. This is Nadal Hassan. So I said, hi, how are you doing? And here's the response I got.
Huh. Wow.
I thought, that's strange. Like a fish, like cheating a fish or something. So I tried to chat with him and said, well, where did you come from? Well, I'm from Walter Reed. And like you would normally with a colleague,
right.
You know, what's your specialty? And, you know, when did you get here? And is there anything I can help you with? And no communication, very, very odd interaction with him. Huh. He did say, he said, well, I'll help you with a couple of your patients. So I think I took 2, the captain took 2, and he took 2, I believe. And we did our job, and we turned around, and he was gone. Didn't know where he was. Didn't know what he did. Now, again, I'm responsible for the patients.
Right.
So I would at least like to know, what was your decision?
Right.
Did you send them to the barracks? Are they going to show up tomorrow? We had no idea. No communication, no nothing.
Wow.
So the next day I had to track down, what had happened, make sure everything was okay.
Well, sure.
And also to kind of go forward, we did not know this until after the attack. But when the police and the FBI and everybody started to investigate him, what he was doing was he was taking some of those patients, and he took some of my patients that had had brain injuries that were seen at my clinic, and taking them somewhere and trying to get them to admit to war crimes. He was trying to convince them what you did in Iraq was a war crime. You're responsible. You need to go to the CID, the Criminal Investigation Division,
right,
and turn yourself in and confess. We had no idea he was doing that sort of thing.
Was he working with anybody else when he was doing that, or did they know? Or
no, because we were so busy, and also your doctors. You know,
right.
you don't get to that position normally without being credentialed and being responsible and having some experience. So, I don't go around following all the other doctors to make sure what they're doing.
Well, right, yeah.
And he wasn't assigned in my building to me anyway.
Right.
What we think he was doing was he was taking the patients to his office and doing that sort of thing, and nobody really knew it.
Wow. That's crazy. It's my understanding that President Obama is the one that shut that investigation down, which is a big red flag for me to start with. To this day, that incident is classified as an act of workplace violence. And I know that Dr. Platoni is a strong advocate for trying to get that reclassified for what it actually is, an act of domestic terrorism. And are you involved in that in any way, or are you helping them to try and get that changed? Or
Yeah, absolutely. Let me give you a little bit of background on that.
Okay.
I, of course, am a work colleague of the guy.
Right.
I also have a PhD in psychology.
Right.
I deal with instances where people in workplaces get upset, and that, like the military, like every place else,
Right.
Some people get upset and don't get along, conflict with the supervisor. I can recognize workplace violence. That's my profession,
Right.
not just my opinion. I'm an expert. I've testified in court on those issues. I'm the one to make the diagnosis, the decisions, and treatment plans.
Right.
I know this guy personally. I observed his work interactions. And this had absolutely nothing to do with workplace violence. That's a complete lie. It was made up by the government. It's completely inaccurate. And we told them that from the beginning. We had a bad storm here, and we've had trouble all day with our connection. So I don't know if it's our connection or what. I have a hotspot, supposed to be running off the hotspot. But anyway, that entire issue is a lie, frankly. And when Obama came to talk to us, he would never talk to us directly. So he run around and talk to everybody else.
Right.
I'm the chief of where this happened. Nobody talked to me, wouldn't talk to me about it. So we never could have a conversation like that.
Right.
Your audience, some of them will know and some won't. But because there were so many units involved, again, reserve units and these deploying units,
right,
and so forth, people have different status in the armed forces. Not everybody's on active duty.
Right.
We activated reservists and so forth. And so they cannot get military benefits, financial help, and health care because this was not classified correctly.
Right.
So they're really hurting. And I know of many of our survivors who live in remote areas of the country, some up in Minnesota, some in New Mexico, that don't have a VA close, don't have any close help, and they continue to struggle with medical care.
Right.
Also, in terms of that, I've written, Colonel Platoni and I published an article documenting his radicalization as terrorism. She's published this in Combat Stress magazine.
Right.
And he's publicly declared that he's a terrorist, and this was a terrorist. There's no question about it.
Right.
In court, I was in court as a witness, and he answered questions that were directed to me and to him. And he says, yes, I admit this was terrorism. I admit I was trying to kill the people wearing uniforms like me.
Right.
So it's unbelievable that, first of all, they did that, and it's unbelievable that they won't change it.
I know. I just don't understand it. I know that I interviewed Dr. Platoni last week, and I've got letters here that was sent to Donald Trump, J.D. Vance,
everybody,
Bernie Moreno, which is an Ohio senator, congressman, and I think it was in North Carolina. There's even a letter to Pete Hegseth, and she has yet to get a response from any of them.
We've sent letters to everybody. My two senators, my congressperson, we don't get a response from any. Here's our response we get.
Right. Well, let me ask you this: has any of them, any political office holder, ever came to your office and threatened you?
Well, they didn't threaten me. Mostly they ignored me. But the closest that happened was I went to see Kay Granger, who is now in a mental ward or something. She's retired, and there's something wrong where she's being treated for mental problems. And I'm very, you can tell I'm very upset.
Right.
What happened was she's my congresswoman. She's now been replaced by a new congressman. Goldman is his name. But I went to Granger's office in person to talk to them about this, to the staff people and her, for two reasons. One is, can you help us and can you address this?
Right.
Of the workplace violence. Second issue was I was up for retirement, mandatory retirement because of my age.
Mm-hmm.
General officers and chaplains can have that waived. Other people could have it waived. I'm actually classified as a medical service corps officer, but because I have a specialty that nobody else in the Army had, I was going to talk to her and says, just have this way. I'm willing. I'll stay on active duty. I'm willing to continue and help out. And they were supposed to promote me, but that wasn't my motivation.
Right.
But I was willing to stay. And it's a tremendous hardship on us because we live in Fort Worth. I had to commute on weekends back and forth to Fort Hood.
Right.
My wife wasn't happy. And I'd done all this to help out with the war effort. And her response was that after I left the office, she called the deputy clinical director of Darnell Army Hospital and said, "Oh, you better watch out for Dr. Hopewell. He might commit suicide."
Huh.
Now, also, I haven't mentioned this, but who's Dr. Hopewell? I was in charge of suicide prevention for the hospital.
Right.
I'm the one directing suicide prevention.
Wow.
When I was in charge of the clinic, we never had a single suicide. I was at Darnall for 7 years, I think, total. In 7 years, I never had a single suicide, zero. And
That's amazing.
This woman calls the hospital commander and, kind of threatens, "Oh, I still don't know what that was about. I have no clue."
Wow.
But I was asking for help, and I was asking to serve my country more.
Right.
After that, retired. Then eventually I just retired as a civilian, came on back home.
Right.
But that's how we've been treated.
I know Dr. Platoni is actually a good friend of mine. I've known her for quite a while, and she's been a huge supporter of not only myself, but my organization as well, and now this podcast. And the stories I've heard from her on this, it just nothing about this makes sense. It just screams of some kind of cover up. And I don't understand the pushback to save my life on reclassifying it for what it actually is. That just boggles my mind. But this is an opportunity for you and the survivors to get your story out and hopefully get it in front of some other high-ranking people and put some pressure on them to do the right thing.
Well, we hope so. I saw in the news, and all I know is what I saw in the news, but Biden apparently commuted the death sentences of 47 murderers. And these guys, one was sent to Supermax in Colorado, and the others, I guess, are being sent different places. So all these people are on death row.
Right.
And my understanding is they'll stay in prison, but their death sentence was commuted. Now, as far as I know, they're not going to commute Hassan's, and Biden did not.
Right.
So he remains at Leavenworth. I have written them a letter asking to interview him. Again, zero, no response.
Right.
But this morning, I sent a message to Pam Bondi at the Department of Justice,
right,
because she had a personal meeting with the families of the people that were killed by those 47 murderers. And I asked her, of course, you have to send it through, and I said, you met with these people.
Right.
We request a meeting also.
Absolutely.
Regarding Hassan.
Absolutely.
Give us the same courtesy that you gave other family members.
Absolutely.
So,
and it's also been brought to my attention that I think it's Secretary Hegseth has made a statement that he's going to try and fast track Hassan's execution.
Well, that's our understanding. We would like the reclassification to happen first.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And it should have been classified that all along, in my opinion.
And we don't understand why we don't get a response from him either. But
no, I mean, there's absolutely no sense, no reason whatsoever that your local congressman or senator can't get you an answer. There's no reason for it. They work for you.
We had, where are you located up north?
Ohio.
Yeah, it's up north. My family's from Ohio.
Okay.
But here in Texas, Waco is in the middle of the state, center of the state. And one of the Waco news organizations had a broadcast a couple of weeks ago. I think it was 2 parts on Fort Hood, and it wasn't just me, but they interviewed Colonel Platoni, interviewed other survivors. And one of the things I said was exactly this. I said, our congressperson who should be involved won't even respond. And right. I put their names. I said, these are the people we talked to, and they damaged us rather than even trying to help us. And so that was on news broadcasts here. We still haven't heard anything. And after I did that, well, actually, before I did it, I called the congressman's office and I said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be on television.
Right.
I'm not going to be polite to you.
No, there's no reason to.
Your lack of response.
Right.
And the response I got again was,
well, nothing. They don't care. They don't care. They don't care. They don't think they have to answer to anybody.
And
that's the problem with me.
When the broadcast was done, what do you think he was doing? Nothing, as far as I know, because the government was shut down. So I don't know what he was doing.
Right.
He had plenty of time to do something, but he didn't have any time to respond to us.
Right. That's uncalled for. Totally uncalled for. Well, before we wrap this up, is there anything else that you'd like to bring up and, let our listeners and viewers know about that might help you guys with your case?
I think that's
we haven't talked about.
That summarizes it pretty well. Colonel Platoni and I, it took us 10 years, literally, to get a transcript of the trial. We couldn't even do that. Wow. And we've been like dogs that won't let go. So for 10 years, we dogged the Army to get a transcript of the trial. I finally got it. Anytime we try to ask a question, we get stonewalled. A bunch of the transcript is redacted.
Right.
Again, and I don't know why they wouldn't let me interview him at Leavenworth. I'm not going to threaten him or anything.
Right.
I'm a psychologist.
Right.
And the letter I wrote, I said, I would like to speak to him and understand more about what he did. And he knew me personally. And, they won't respond. So
it's almost like they're protecting him for something.
Yeah, I think so. And again,
like they don't want some kind of information to get out or something. This whole thing is fishy.
Well, I think so. I absolutely believe so. And again, if I was in the Army, both reserve and active duty for 27 years. I'm a graduate of Texas A&M. I took military science. If I had for 1 week done what he had done, I would have been court-martialed, thrown out of the Army, penalized, had some sort of sanctions on me.
Right.
But he does this for years and gets away with it.
Wow. Yeah, I don't understand any of it. I mean, it boggles your mind that he was able to somehow fly under the radar, even though I don't think that was the case. I think they knew, from everything I'm hearing, but
they just
how they allowed it to happen is just beyond me.
Yep.
So
well, the two officers at Darnall, one was the chief of psychiatry, the other was the clinical director. Of course, they should have done something also.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they just let it slide.
They should have never gotten to that point.
You have one of your doctors not showing up for work, not doing, and physicians and medical care is hard enough to begin with.
Right.
But in the middle of a war with injured soldiers coming back, literally by the hundreds,
right,
coming to rotate, you want your doctors to do their job.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You don't want to have a doctor who's never there, not doing
right,
that.
Right.
Like you'd pay attention to that.
Exactly. In fact, I brought that to the attention of one of my doctors about 2 weeks ago. He showed up late for his appointment. So, all right. Well, we'll go ahead and call this a wrap. And I want to thank you for coming on. And, for all of our users and our viewers and listeners, I want to take this opportunity to thank you for subscribe and share. That helps us out tremendously. And Dr. Hopewell, I wish you all the best, and I hope we get this thing straightened out. But I can make you a promise here today. I'm going to get this in front of as many people and as many politicians as I possibly can.
It's 15/2010. It's approximately 18:30 in the evening here at Forward Operating Base Forest. Please tell me your name and your rank, sir.
My name's Corporal Jimmy Robinson.
Congratulations, you just got promoted here. First time being promoted away from the States?
No, I got promoted to PFC during my first deployment.
So this is your second deployment, is that right?
Actually, my third.
Your third. One in Afghanistan?
Yeah, I've done 2 in Iraq, 1 in Afghanistan.
All right, tell me, what's your job?
My job, I'm a fire team leader, Alpha team leader under Sergeant Riley.
And how old are you, sir?
27.
How long have you been in the Army?
I've been in a little bit over 5 years.
Where do you hail from?
Originally from Cincinnati, Ohio.
Home of the Bengals, is that right?
That's right.
I was speaking with Sergeant Riley earlier, and he spoke quite highly of you. You guys look like you have a really tight group here.
Yeah, it's we're all really close. We're all pretty good friends across the board.
You have family back home?
Yeah, I've got a wife and 2 kids back at Fort Campbell.
Congratulations, and their names?
Thank you. My wife's name's Kate, and my oldest daughter is Emily, youngest is Tori.
Anything you want to say to them?
I love you guys. I miss you.
Very good. Corporal Robinson, congratulations on your promotion.
All right, thank you very much.
And be safe out here.
I'll try.
It's Jim Sperry, August 15, 2010, at the promotion of Corporal Robinson. Corporal, what's your first name again?
It's Jimmy.
Jimmy. That's an easy name to remember. My name's Jim.
It works, huh?
All right, roger that, buddy. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Congratulations.